Welcome into a football show. Thank you guys for joining us. We know it's a little bit later than normal, but we are here, Senior Bowl week, Mobile, Alabama, live from the Airbnb, the East. The Beast in the East is what we're going to call our Airbnb, the Beast in the East. I'm joined by Stoney Keeley. You can follow him on X at Stoney Keeley. And then, of course, the Sobros Network, stackingtheinbox.com, where you can read everything. What you guys got coming up at Sobros Network this week?
Well, let's see. We do have Brandon Vick's best films of 2023.
I like it.
I'm hoping it doesn't cause as much controversy as mine did last week, but something tells me it won't. We've got a bunch of other stuff that I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, there you go. We got so much stuff he can't fucking remember. And that's what you want from a website like SobrosNetworks.com, is that they got everything that you could ever ask for. They got it all in one place, whether you are wanting to look at sports, food, movies, some erotic fiction.
Erotic fiction.
There you go. It's poetry. I mean, everything is there over at SobrosNetwork.com. StackingTheInbox.com. You got an email this morning, and you got emails all last week from Stoney. We have some big news that we are going to share with you guys later. But tonight, it's all about the Senior Bowl preview, and we could not be here live from Mobile if it was not for Lions Ford in Lewisburg, Tennessee. Family-owned, family-operated. They will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that they get the car for you. And how do I know that? Because my dad owns the dealership.
How about that?
So you tell them that you go down there next time you need a car, used or pre-owned. That's the proper term. Pre-owned.
Yeah, how dare you?
Ford, does not matter. They will get the car for you. Lions Ford, Lewisburg, Tennessee. They'll deliver it to you. If you're in Nashville, you don't even have to go down to the dealership. They'll do everything over the phone, everything over the internet, whatever you may need. They will get done. They also do pickup and delivery for the local area, and make sure that you have a car to drive. If your car is ever in the shop, Lions Ford, Lewisburg, Tennessee. That's how we got down here today. Was a Ford Bronco, actually, from Lions Ford. Then, of course, our normal sponsors, the Kingston Group, BuildKG.com. Nobody will treat your house better than BuildKG.com. Remodeling, repairs, whatever you may need, BuildKG.com. Guess what? They are locally owned and operated, too. There's a theme with all of our sponsors here, but BuildKG.com, where you want to go. They only use the highest quality materials, the highest quality people. They will treat you right. Call them today. It will cost you nothing to call them today. And then, of course, Sinkers Beverages, where we have provisions. We got provisions for this week from Sinkers Beverages. And I also split time with Bluegrass Beverages to make sure that they are all represented here in Mobile, Alabama. Sinkers Beverages is a multi-award winning liquor store. There we go.
Yeah.
And they're on Uber Eats, both Bluegrass Beverages and Sinkers Beverages. And you know why they're on Uber Eats? You know what they will do for you?
Wait, am I supposed to say the line?
You're going to have to because I'm doing the rest.
Okay. What can they do for... Wait, no.
They'll drive so you can drink.
Okay.
There you go. Uber Eats. We'll get it right next time.
I thought you were throwing it to me, and I was going to say the line, but then I was like, wait, what you just said did not make sense for me to respond.
Oh, you didn't? Well, what they'll do for you, they'll drive so they could drink.
But you're asking me if I know.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So,
well, we are there. Sinkers Beverages. We're here in Mobile. A lot to get to, so let's start at the top. Let's get the Titans stuff out of the way because the bulk of our conversation is going to be about the prospects and everything. But we have some staff updates, Stoney, and I want to get your thoughts because we've talked a lot on our way down. We had some spicy conversations we should have recorded.
We did.
We talked about the legitimacy of the claims of Derrick Henry being a leader. We talked about the legitimacy of the complaint of the did I say complaints the first time? Anyway, the legitimacy of the statements that Mike Vrabel is a shoe-in to get a next coaching cycle.
I think we pinned it down to what?
Three.
Maybe three.
Maybe three openings make sense for Mike Vrabel next year.
Yeah. So
that's something that we'll talk about on Football and Other F Words this Wednesday, those two things in particular, because we want to get some insight from the people. But, there's a little bit of some claims that we think that are a little peculiar. But one person that we really enjoyed, and because we're at Senior Bowl, I want to give a shout out to our boy Charles London, who is no longer with the Tennessee Titans. He has been free to
eliminated.
Well, yeah, I think he's still alive.
Oh,
He's been free
this
to
works.
search for other opportunities.
He's been relieved of his duties.
Yes, he's good luck. He was good luck in your future endeavors. But we like the fact that we loved the idea of Charles London being here on staff because at some point you have to take into consideration Will Levis. But what are your overall thoughts on Charles London not being here to help transition Will Levis?
I think it's a statement that I don't think Brian Callahan is necessarily worried about a bridge between Will Levis's 2023 season and what they're trying to build moving forward. I think London was probably the most likely candidate from this coaching staff to stay and remain as the bridge. And the fact that they just let him go, really, he and Tim Kelly and Stretch like the first dominoes to fall for us to get official word that they're not going to be back. I mean, ultimately looks like Shane Bowen's going to be gone too. He's interviewing for defensive coordinator jobs elsewhere. But for me, I like Charles London, and I think it's not just his experience with Will Levis, but it's his experience in general. He comes from a diverse background, few different systems, capable coach. I would have liked to have seen him stay and continue to carve out a role with this team with Will Levis for the future. But I think this is Brian Callahan kind of saying, no, we're good. We don't need a bridge.
Yeah, I look at it this way.
Unless they keep Jason Hoteling. Maybe Jason Hoteling's the bridge.
Here's the thing. We put it like this. The Titans aren't needing to really bridge any gaps.
Yeah.
They're building a whole new bridge.
Sure.
And while I think Charles London is a future offensive coordinator in this league, he showed us that last time we were at the Senior Bowl. We walked away very impressed with his leadership on the field, the way that he directed all these young players and everything. And while I think he's a great quarterback coach for Will Levis, I think everybody can't get a statement about Will Levis without mentioning Charles London. That's a good sign. I don't think Charles London is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And when you're building a new bridge and you're building a new communication, and if Charles London, listen, for all we know, Charles London could have gone in there and he could have said, screw you guys. I don't want to work here. I don't want to work for no white pasty boy like you, Brian Callahan, you nerd.
Yeah,
we don't know what he said.
You guys are too nice.
Yeah.
I need some assholes around here.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, we know that Brian Callahan's Rolodex is very thick. So it's like 3 C's thick. And so when that was one of the big pros of hiring Brian Callahan was how deep his connections went. And as much as I appreciate what Charles London has done, as much as I appreciate what Charles London will be, you got to bring in the guys that can be loyal to you, that you could trust to carry out your message when you're not around.
Yeah. Is there any part of this decision that makes you a little excited? Like, if Charles
totally
London wasn't good enough to keep around, what does Brian Callahan have in mind for this staff?
I think that's the whole thing. That's how this needs to be viewed, is what can Brian Callahan bring to the staff, and you should be excited for that. There's no reason not to be excited about it. And listen, the same thing can be said for Terrell Williams, who's down here, Chris Harris. They're all respectable, good coaches. But again, they're building a new bridge. And they're not here to mend bridges. That's kind of where our Derrick Henry kind of situation lies too. But speaking of that, and speaking of bringing in people that you can trust, people that know you, that can carry out your message, that can speak for you when you're not in the room, like Brian Callahan did for Zach Taylor. Here comes Nick Holtz, first name out of the gate, passing game coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars, has deep ties to the Callahan family. Him and Brian went to high school together. He worked under Bill. He's worked with Brian. It's the buddy system cranked up to 1,000.
Listen, super hot coaching name for the past decade.
Yeah. Apparently the hottest name of the last few years, according to Peter Schrager, who definitely did not have a agent write that for him.
Right. No, of course not. That never happens in football.
But people are upset. Of course they go, well, you can't hire your buddy. Oh, what has he done? And hiring your buddy never works.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it worked for Brian Callahan, right? Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan met on the beaches in spring break 2005 and never have looked back. And 14 years later,
to be a pebble of sand on that beach.
Yeah, 14 years later, Brian Callahan, with no prior offensive coordinator experience, gets the job to be offensive coordinator, and he doesn't call plays. And 5 years later, he's the Tennessee Titans head coach. Nick Holes or Holtz, we don't know.
I like Holes.
Yeah, the old Nick Holes.
Nick Holes. Sounds like a dirty nickname.
Yeah, Nick Holes. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Art Smith. Like he comes in with less play calling, right? He's like Art Smith with no offensive play calling.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all right, right? Like if he was hired.
My concern is not that Brian Callahan's dipping into the buddy system to hire his coaches. I mean, that's the norm in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned that Brian Callahan is looking at the Jags passing game and being like, that's what we need to get some of here.
Well, see, that is a big thing to be concerned about, because I was thinking about, and I didn't talk about this because I wanted to save it for the podcast.
Being blindsided with topics now.
But I go back to him being passing game coordinator.
Yes.
And if you remember, I think it was around the London game against not the Bills. Yes, the Bills. So it's the London game against the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. And everybody's ragging on Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
And they're saying that he's not on the same page with Trevor Lawrence. There seems to be communication issues all across the passing offense and all this stuff. Well, if that's all true, if Calvin Ridley doesn't know what to do, if Trevor Lawrence is not on the same page with his wide receivers, that seems like the passing game coordinator's job.
One would think, yeah.
So my concern, I am with you, is that he is not good at either communication. But again, the Jacksonville Jaguars did clean house with a bunch of their offensive staff, and he stood there. He withstood the firing storm.
Okay.
So Doug Peterson doesn't think he's to blame.
Fair enough.
Do you trust Doug Peterson's assessment then?
I am generally higher on Doug Peterson than I think you are.
Yeah, I think he stinks.
I don't think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, but I think you can obviously win a Super Bowl with Doug Peterson. The Philadelphia Eagles did. But I think with his expertise on the offensive side of the ball, yes, I think that does carry a little bit of weight.
Okay, so if that's the case, I also want to propose this.
All right.
Isn't there the possibility that this is a Charles London kind of move? Okay, so here's what I want to tell you. Charles London, if you remember, came in and interviewed for the offensive coordinator position with the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Didn't get hired, got hired as passing game coordinator and quarterback coach.
Yeah.
He comes in and interviews for offensive coordinator, but he may get hired as quarterback coach, passing games coordinator. Where do you fall on that? Do you think that's the better avenue? Do you have a preference? Because he's not calling plays, whoever the offensive coordinator is.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit with another name in this coaching search on the way down. And I think, because I think, I don't know, to me, it's a bit of an unknown what exactly the offensive coordinator is going to be responsible for. When you call somebody a passing game coordinator, it sounds like a more specialized role. It sounds like the person is maybe not as responsible for as much as the offensive coordinator is. And therefore I think it is safer to take a guy that comes from a place where he was tasked with coordinating this passing game, and I don't think the passing game was as good as it was expected to be.
Yes.
So the results don't necessarily, to me, but
is Trevor Lawrence holding him back?
It could be. I mean, I'm kind of with you on Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's anything special. People were calling him like a top 5 quarterback. I don't even know if he's top 10 right now. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like the results would say he's probably not going to be ready, primed to be an offensive coordinator in the true sense of the word, which for most teams we have to keep in mind does mean calling the plays. And that's not going to be the responsibility for whoever the offensive coordinator is here. So, the results say this little iffy, but you go into it as Brian Callahan, you're ironing those things out, right? I mean, do they do that in the interview? Do they just be like, what's the deal with Trevor Lawrence? Like, does he really suck or what?
Yeah,
So,
I think they do. I think they do pick their brain. I mean, we know that's why Mike Vrabel tried to get Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy, and here was to pick their brain about the Kansas City offense.
So I'm kind of iffy to answer your question. I don't think he has the results to back up like, oh, this is a hot name that should be in offensive coordinator searches right now. But I also think there probably is room for a conversation to figure out, hey, what exactly didn't work? And you know what? Just ask him, was it your fault?
Yeah. Okay. So the other name that has been requested to be interviewed is Eric Studesville.
Studsville.
Or we could call him Dudesville.
Yeah.
Or Studville. We got both. Those are the only two acceptable names. But Studesville, maybe Dudesville is the best way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But he has been he's been linked to the job, and of course, it was a fairly obvious connection to make. He has he's spent 2010 to 2015 on the staff with Brian Callahan with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
He is in charge of the run game, and he has done some tremendous work with not tremendous talent. And he's, the Broncos were top 10 or top 12 in EPA per play and success rate.
Yeah.
The Miami Dolphins were one of the best running teams over the last 2 years.
Yeah. I don't know where that narrative came that like the Dolphins couldn't run the ball.
Yeah. I think that came from people still think Myles Gaskin is there, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was his leading rusher in 2017, by the way, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, the quarterback, was his leading rusher, by the way. So he survived. What I liked about him is that he survived multiple coaches came in and said, you provide value to this team.
Yeah.
And he's learned now, again, kind of like Brian Callahan, the McVay-Shanahan tree and also the Shanahan-Gase-Kubiak tree. And he can bring all that together, kind of like Brian Callahan. And there's like a connection between the two as far as they could pull from multiple different formations, multiple different philosophies. So I really like Eric Studesville.
I'm with you.
I think there's obviously got to be one more. This is a lot like for those that don't know, coordinator positions and quarterback coach do follow a Rooney Rule. So it is like the head coach for the coordinators. You have to do two external minority interviews in person. And then on the flip side, for quarterback coach, you'll have to do one external minority interview in person.
Educating the people.
So Studesville, if he were to come in, obviously has done it. Now they've Zoom interviewed Denard Wilson, but that doesn't count. Okay. So he still has to come in person, and we'll talk about Denard Wilson. But thoughts on Eric Studesville?
He has to what in person? I'm sorry.
Interview.
Okay. I thought you said something else there for a second. Studsville, you had me at Miami run game coordinator. Because if you watch that offense, and I know Mike McDaniel's calling the plays, obviously, they do have some talent, a lot of speed in the backfield, but the way they run the football is really creative. And you hit the nail on the head, too, bringing up the Broncos run. I was going to ask, did you say he was the run game coordinator for the Broncos?
The running back coach for the Broncos.
Running back coach, yeah. So experience there, a myriad of experience to me in successful offenses that probably aren't known for their running backs at the time. Like we talked about this narrative that's out there that the Dolphins like aren't a running team or whatever.
Even though Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert are two of the best running backs, and they were the best running back tandem.
Yeah,
but they also, on a per snap, per touch basis, were two of the best running backs in the NFL.
So, I mean, of the names that we've discussed that we know of so far, I like it. I kind of like the idea, and again, like we mentioned with Nick Holes, maybe not necessarily for the offensive coordinator position, but this is probably a dude that Brian Callahan wants on his staff somewhere and could make some things happen.
The last coordinator that we'll talk about is Denard Wilson.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, and his name escapes me now, that wrote for The Athletic that kind of broke the news that he was interviewing for the Giants defensive coordinator position. And he said this would be an easy transition for them if they hired him because he knows the Wink Martindale system. Incorrect. He knows the Mike McDonald system, which is totally different than the Wink Martindale system.
Yeah.
And we talked about the value of not bringing in an older vet. I don't think an older vet is the way to go because first off, your good older vets, they're all taken.
Yeah.
Steve Spags ain't coming through that door.
No.
So to me, I'm thinking I want as close to Mike McDonald, Brandon Staley as I can get to creative defensive coordinators.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm thinking, okay, I think I know they got to do one more interview in person, and then they got to bring him in there for an interview. But you got to start moving a little bit quicker than what they were. Brian Callen spent way too much time on radio stations, less talky, more worky.
Yeah, I think two items on him: the creativity of Mike McDonald's system, and how it isn't like. Well, first of all, I am a sucker for Wink Martindale. I kind of love and appreciate and respect Wink Martindale's philosophy of just.
Well, you guys dress alike.
Yeah, we do. Just blitz the shit out of everybody, no matter what the opponent is. We're just going to blitz the shit out of everybody and play man, whether we've got the corners to play man or not. I respect that personally. But Mike McDonald, what they've done in Baltimore this week or this season, mixing things up on a week-to-week basis based on the opponent is some really, really good defensive game planning and design. And also the group that he's responsible for, the defensive backs, have played particularly well. Now,
I mean, even at the game on Sunday, you wouldn't really say that outside of like the one big, explosive play.
Yeah,
that they did their job, right? I mean, they I think limited them to like 6 points or 3 points for the final. I think it was 3 points for the final 9 drives.
Yeah,
I mean, they did their job on Sunday. Lamar Jackson did not.
He did not.
But look at Kyle Hamilton's development.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know who Kyle Hamilton is on this Titans roster. I don't know if there's
Monty Hooker, I guess,
a Kyle Hamilton in the draft or free agency. And having the horses certainly helps. But I would also say, look at the narrative on Kyle Hamilton before this season and how some folks were ready to give up on him and say he wasn't worth being drafted as high as he was. I remember that year that he came out, I had him as the #1 overall ranked player in that draft class.
And you could argue that out of that draft class, he probably still is the #1 ranked player.
I loved his tape, his potential, his kind of trajectory as a bit of a tweener, which is what you saw Baltimore do with them this season, is just kind of put him all over the place. So I don't know, having a piece like that successfully acclimate to your defense is a testament to your coaching. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say, well, you're not going to have those horses if you come to Tennessee.
But also think about the horses they had elsewhere, right? I mean, it was Arthur Mallett. It was Ronald Darby. And because I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Marlon Humphrey ended up playing, did he?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember hearing his name, but I mean, he was kind of getting it done with lesser people.
Yeah.
And it's all about, for them, it's all about the scheme #1, and then the players #2.
Yeah.
And I think that right now, if you're looking to duplicate Mike McDonald, you got to get Denard Wilson. I would say the other guy would be Anthony Weaver, but I would think Denard Wilson is the #1 guy to get right now.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
Hey, you know why we're down here? Because we're down here to talk Senior Bowl.
They drive so you can drink.
There you go. And you know how they got down here? How we got down here? Not they. How we got down here? Lions Ford, Lewisburg, Tennessee. Make sure you go down there. And, of course, we have beverages from Sinker's Beverages in East Nashville. And, of course, this house was not built, but it may be. They'll call buildkg.com to make some improvements on this house.
Maybe.
But it's a really nice house. The Beast in the East.
We're going to leave him a note.
Beast on the East. Okay. Let's talk about some Senior Bowl prospects. Okay. And here's where I'm at on this. I had a list prepared of players I wanted to talk about. And you know what happened? A lot of these players did not end up fucking showing up.
Well, Troy Fontenot found out they were measuring arms here and was like, fuck no, I can't go down there.
So we're kind of going to go in a different direction.
Okay.
We've been a different direction what I planned out, but direction what you've been thinking anyway.
Oh, okay. All right.
I want to talk about some players that we're going to be watching, excited to watch, but also be watching that maybe their measurements kind of changed our mind about them, because the measurements were all over the place. Because you got Jordan Morgan, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. The hype train for Jordan Morgan is over.
Done. He is a guard. Don't even try to have your philosophical discussions if the length matters. No. Here's what you need to know. It matters for Brian Callahan, so it matters to us.
There you go. Say no more. I really liked Jordan Morgan's game. Yep. I thought he had a really clean game. I loved his tape against Laiatu Latu in the UCLA game. I thought was awesome stuff. I think he won that matchup pretty decisively. If you go back and watch it, he was a guy that I thought could be in play for the Titans if the Titans elected to go receiver with a Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze at 7th overall. They could still get a guy like Jordan Morgan who could come in and start at left tackle. And I don't think that's the case anymore, because the arms are just, I don't have the exact measurements in front of me.
It was 32 and some change.
Yeah, so it's below the threshold. You like that. I think 34 is like ideal, but you can kind of work with 33 and a half a little bit. But when you get down to 32, it's over, Zach. It's over. The Jordan Morgan hype train has died. We're off the rails.
It felt like it didn't really leave the station long enough. So here's where we're at here. I'm gonna take a different direction than even a more different direction. I've taken another turn.
Okay, right.
The Tennessee Titans draft a wide receiver in round 1.
Okay.
Give the people some options based on these measurements. Now that we have some measurements, some people that you are going to be watching as, if the Titans go wide receiver round 1, where can they get a tackle?
So we're talking specifically left tackle.
Left tackle, right tackle. Hey, listen, Titans need both.
I don't know that there's going to be a right tackle. It was interesting to see Talisi Fuaga's numbers come back, and he's kind of right on that fringe when it comes to arm length, where I think I've read some people that have slotted him inside to guard as well. I don't think he's going to be there in the second round, but this is kind of something where, you see the arm length, maybe the first domino to fall. If he doesn't have a good week, a good process here, maybe he could be one of the names that slide down there. I don't know that he really fits what Brian Callahan wants to do. I know the Titans last season kind of made a shift in philosophy to get more pass protection specialists along the offensive line. Brian Callahan hasn't outright said he's going to continue that, but he has talked about the importance of pass protection. And so I kind of lean towards Talisi Fuaga is not going to be his type of tackle. I'm looking on the left side of the line, and for me, it's Patrick Paul. When you see these measurements come back, we were joking about it in the car on the way over here. This is like,
tell the people. Get them all hot and bothered.
This is
a man, a mutant ogre of a man.
And I don't even have Patrick Paul.
I got right here.
You go for it.
He's 6'7".
Yeah.
333 pounds. He's got 36.28 inch arms.
Yeah.
He has, oh my gosh, 9 3/8 hands. Okay. Yeah. But an 82.38 wingspan.
Wait
a minute. Read the wrong one. 86.68.
I was about to say the wingspan.
86.68.
The arm length came out, and I was like, okay, you can look at Patrick Paul and tell this is a gargantuan man, like long limbed. He's got the ideal length. Well, I would say like above average length for what.
Like, okay, let's say the Titans sign or bring in Bill Callahan.
Yeah.
And they draft Malik Neighbors 7 overall.
Yeah.
And he goes, they say, look at this guy, look at this picture, Dad. Look at this picture.
Yeah.
And he looks at him and he goes, I can do something with him.
Yeah.
Son, I'll do it. Do you think they call them dad and son? Is a father? You think he's a father, a dad, or a daddy? Or a papa? You can get a papa in there.
I would say papa.
Oh, Papa Cow?
Papa Cow.
Papa C.
Yeah. I think Patrick Paul is very much in play. He's a guy that I haven't watched a lot of tape on. I've watched a couple of his games. To be honest, I think the tape leaves a little to be desired. He's a pretty polished pass protector, and that may work in his favor here with the Titans. But I think he's got a little work to do to be a more well-rounded tackle. And I felt like there were times that to have this frame that he has, the length that he has, 333 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, I kind of wanted to see him put dudes in the dirt a little bit more. But I'm eager to see him this week to see how he performs in the one-on-ones going up this.
And what he's coached to do in the one-on-ones.
Yeah, these defensive lines. And I'm eager to see like how he responds to the coaching, because that was my big thing with Jalen Duncan last year was this is a really raw prospect. And Paul is better than Duncan. I don't want people to get that thought in their heads. But I was watching Duncan get the one-on-one coaching in between reps and seeing him apply that and get better throughout the week. And that's why I ultimately arrived at the conclusion that, hey, if Jalen Duncan can continue on this trajectory of showing that he's coachable, it's going to benefit him in the end. And I think Patrick Paul is a guy that is at a different level from Duncan, but it's the same type of
a guy that can really improve his stock this week.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say we've shifted gears. We've jumped off the Jordan Morgan hype train.
We're going the PP Express.
We're just going to hop on Patrick Paul.
The PP Express.
The PP Express.
Christian Jones really piqued your interest, right? You talked about his his film against Alabama.
That was a good
game. Came in at 6'5", 318, 34.7-inch arms. I don't like how they do these, by the way. And then he's got some massive mauling hands. He's got 10-inch hands. Looks to be almost the biggest out of the offensive linemen. Layden Robinson gets him by a little bit. But he has an 83.3 wingspan. Tell the people about some Christian Jones.
I like Christian Jones. I like the link. The measurements were not too far off from what the Texas website has him listed as 6'6", 321. And he came in at, what did you say, 6'5", 318?
Yeah.
Not too far off, but you like to see that he's got the arm length there that you're looking for, the massive hands, the wingspan. I watched his tape against Alabama. I wrote about it. I think I wrote about it in my Senior Bowl preview. I can't recall. My first note on Christian Jones is, oh, baby, that foot drive run blocking. Good job picking Good job picking up a stunt, relentless with his feet, good reps versus Chris Braswell, clean pass sets against Chris Braswell, who's also down here this week, a pretty damn good edge rusher. Dare I say an underrated edge rusher in this class. Gets into his body and just wears him down. He's a bulldozer. Good job of closing the gap between he and the defender, initiating the contact versus Dallas Turner's speed. That's important because Dallas Turner, the name of his game is speed. And if he can get by you, he's going to get to the quarterback. But I thought Christian Jones did a really good job of closing the gap, the distance between the two, and not letting Dallas Turner get to full speed. The over-aggression can lead to over-pursuit in space, but I think there's a lot to like about Christian Jones as a guy on the right side of the line that you can add on probably day 3 from what I'm seeing. Like, and I know like these are just mock drafters and draft analysts, but you put some stock into it if they're, some of these guys are connected to agents and, are getting word from people that know. Kind of feel like he's a day 3 guy. And I get like the frame is a little lean on Jones to be, as big as the measurements say. Like he does kind of look like a little more athletic slider right tackle, but I think he's a guy that day 3 you add to the room to compete with guys like NPF, Dylan Radens, maybe even Jalen Duncan, Daniel Brunskill, the right side of the line there. I'm a big fan.
Okay, some other names to keep on your radar for tackles. We got Dominic Puny, Kingsley Suamatia, and Christian Haynes. I know you got some Christian Haynes love written down there. We'll talk about them a little bit later. We need to get to some other positions because let's say that they get Joe Alt.
Yeah.
So where did the Titans go if they take Joe Alt? Well, I'm kind of feeling some Johnny Wilson this week. Now, some people think that he is a tight end. And listen, the size is a tight end. But we're talking about number 28 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. He is listed at 6'6", 237 pounds. 6'6", 237 pounds.
Stupid.
35.5-inch vertical, a 10 foot 5 inch broad jump, 10.5 broad jump, and a 21.23 mile per hour. It is insane how fast he is. Then you also have his acceleration and deceleration is off the charts for a guy that size. He should not be able to move that fast and that nimble, and he shows it on film.
I would also add, I watched Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman as well against Clemson when I did my study on Nate Wiggins. And Nate Wiggins, I think, is the best cornerback in this draft class, by the way, if I can work that in there. He's not here this week, but good competition is what I'm establishing the baseline for when I say this. Johnny Wilson, to be as big and long as he is, to get into his route and juke Nate Wiggins, who I think is a pretty polished cornerback, was pretty impressive. Nate Wiggins wasn't biting on a lot of the foot movement, but Johnny Wilson, I noticed a couple of times, would just kind of flare his body, his frame out, and then break in, and he would get open on Wiggins. And I think that kind of body control, he didn't do it all the time, but I think that kind of body control for a guy with his frame is stupid impressive.
Well, what did Brian Callahan say he wanted? He wanted a few things out of a wide receiver: big, fast, strong.
Yeah.
Okay. But he also wants someone that can be relied on to make the play at the end of the game to score a touchdown. And Johnny Wilson is one of those guys. And I think that Johnny Wilson is going to improve his stock greatly. I'm interested to see what he does off the line of scrimmage and one-on-ones, because it does benefit the wide receiver. Can he take advantage of it?
Yeah.
Or is he going to turn into, for whatever reason, Andre Yoshevis, who just totally disappointed us, didn't use any of his athleticism last year, but he did end up going to the Bengals.
Yeah.
Andre Yoshevis ended up going to the Bengals and showing up in some key games. Another wide receiver.
I will say real quick, Johnny Wilson has some concerning drops on his tape.
Yes.
Just throw that in there.
Another one that I want to kind of bring up is Ricky Pearsall. We were talking about
Tough guy.
We were talking about who is the Puka Nacua? Not really in our hype train, Puka Nacua.
I know people are already asking me to find the next.
Yeah,
like,
but who is someone that is probably the wide receiver that resembles Puka Nacua the most?
Yeah,
and that would be Ricky Pearsall.
In terms of, well, and I clarified to you the thing that I saw in Puka Nacua that made him special, or at least gave him special potential to me, was just how tenacious he played the game. Like he was a dog. You watch that Arkansas game from 2022, and Puka Nacua is the type that like wants to drag you down to a knife fight in the mud kind of deal. Like he's coming down with the ball. He just plays with that kind of mindset. And for me, that was the thing. That was the distinction that, okay, if he gets in the right spot and gets the opportunity, he's going to make the most of it because it is clear he works hard and he wants it. So that being the X factor for Puka Nacua, shifting gears and looking at this class of guys that are going to be here this week, you brought up Ricky Pearsall, and I thought, yeah, that's kind of it right there, because he's had some spotty quarterback play. I don't know what Billy Napier's doing on offense down there at Florida in Gainesville, but he hasn't had the best to work with. And it feels like every other game he is going up and just snatching the ball out of the air. So he's a name to watch this week. I'm with you.
Okay, so I want to talk about Xavier Leggett or Leggett. I don't know which one it is. With you.
I don't know either, but
that's okay. We'll figure that out this weekend. South Carolina.
Yeah.
He comes in with some tiny hands, and there are some questions about him. And he's smaller in almost every way but height compared to AJ Brown. Now, and that's a lot of people have said AJ Brown's the comparison, but it's more about his body control than it is about his body size and body type. But they do share some similarities, but smaller hands. He's a guy that could be there in round 2, obviously.
Yeah.
Where are you at right now? Like, what can Xavier do this weekend for him to change your mind about, okay, I feel really good about Joel Xavier? Because I don't know if we're there. Neither of us are there yet. I'll tell you after you tell me.
I'm not there with him just yet. And I know, like, the AJ Brown comparison feels inevitable. It kind of feels like every draft since 2019, there has been an AJ Brown in each class. So there's a part of me that, you know, I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's unfair to the kid because he plays a similar style, right? There's a lot of in breaking routes, out breaking routes where, you know, he times his break just right. Though I will say I watched the Clemson game and Nate Wiggins did a good job of like getting into his body at the point of his break and not letting him get open. So that could be a potential concern as well. It's there's something about him that just, he's kind of a sluggish runner. And I don't know if he's a long strider. Maybe he's actually faster than he looks. But I think that's the difference for me, is that I watch AJ Brown and there are times when his cuts feel instantaneous. Like he just decides in his brain, I'm going to break this in, and then he goes. And with Xavier Leggett, whatever, I don't see that. There are times that I'm watching him run down the field and it kind of looks like he's running through quicksand. So for me to get to a point where I am stoked that he is the pick in the second round because the measurables have come back and they're less than favorable, I think he's got to go out there this week and show that against good cornerback competition, he can separate without, you know, breaking it off against zone coverage or something like that. Like go out there and win some one-on-one reps down the field. Because if you look at his stats, his game logs, Georgia held him to a pretty low yard per catch clip. Clemson held him to a pretty low yards per catch clip. So I want to see him go out there and produce a little speed in one-on-one situations.
I'm with you because I think about it, and it kind of reminds me of last year, the stark difference between like the top wide receivers like Jonathan Mingo, Tank Dell,
Sure.
Jaden Reed, and the bottom tier receivers that didn't really have a good week. Because I didn't think Grant Dubose had a very good week at the Senior Bowl. I didn't think that Andre Yoshevitz had a very good week at the Senior Bowl.
Yoshevitz was the one that came to mind for me. Yeah.
So to me, it's like you have to separate yourself. Like the expectation for Xavier is to be a second round pick, right?
Yeah.
Right now, Johnny Wilson is not quite a second round pick in most people's eyes. I would say probably Roman Wilson is not a second round pick. Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall, not second round picks. Luke McCaffrey is another one.
Yeah.
If those guys all perform better than Xavier, that should tell you your answer.
Yeah.
That you cannot go into round two thinking Xavier solves the issues that we have, especially if you're wanting to be big, fast, and strong.
Yeah.
Because if he's not big, fast, and strong, then he does not fit what the Titans want. Does not mean that he couldn't go somewhere where it's a more favorable situation for him, a favorable system. But if the Titans are saying big, fast, strong, look at what we drafted over at the Cincinnati Bengals. Look what we have over at San Francisco. Right now, I have a hard time placing Xavier among those wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Like, to me, I'm very interested in, obviously, Jacob Cowing. I've been real big on Jacob Cowing this whole time.
Tightrope walker.
Yeah.
Precision route running, that guy.
I tell you, a name that I keep seeing popped up, keep seeing proposed, saw him in the national championship game, saw him against Alabama, Roman Wilson.
Yeah, man, he seems like a gamer. That national championship, the clutch moments of the game, he climbed the ladder to snag the ball out of the sky. It was announced, I think, the next day or the day or two after that game that he would be at the Senior Bowl. And I immediately perked up because this is a guy that probably a day 3 pick at this point. And I think he's going to be exciting to watch work his craft.
He's small.
He is small. There's a lot of small wide receivers here this year, too.
We've noticed that in a lot of cornerbacks with carny hands.
Yeah.
Small hands smell like cabbage.
Yeah, take my strong hand.
But I found it interesting that Roman Wilson, you know what he kind of reminds me of, and this is not just because they share the last name, but a guy that really improved his stock, Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson.
Yeah. I think he's more athletic. But I think that
like Michael Wilson was longer.
Yeah, Michael Wilson was longer. I think he was a full inch. I think he was only at 5'11".
Was he? I
think so. But he's a guy that Michael Wilson, who went up and got contested catches, went up at the catch point all week long.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, man, I don't know if I really like his athleticism, but I really love how he attacks the ball. And so I'm very interested to watch some Roman Wilson this week.
I want to mention before we get out of here, I know everybody's high on Malachi Corley, little smaller than I expected him to be. He's a tough runner. I'm excited to watch him. I don't want to get into a big discussion about him because I feel like people have been talking about Malachi Corley for weeks now.
It's just Taywan Taylor. So
I want to throw Javon Baker at you guys.
Okay.
Out of UCF. This is a kid with size 6'1", 208, and speed. He is a bit of a burner. Now I'm excited to see how it translates from the UCF offense to the competition here at the Senior Bowl. But I look at him as a guy that could be, I don't want to say Tank Dell because, obviously Tank Dell's not 6'1", but from the standpoint of speed, the name of the game, showing up and surprising people at the Senior Bowl, I think Javon Baker could be that guy that shows up this week and blows everyone's wigs off.
I like it. Hold on to your wigs, folks.
You got to when you're around us.
You got to. Okay. We have some terrible news. We are not sure on this, but it looks like and his name freaking escapes me, and I'm very pissed at myself.
Who are you thinking of?
The Duke offensive lineman.
Graham Barton.
I want to call him Greth Duncan. Graham Barton.
Greth Duncan. I like it.
Graham Barton does not look to be here. He does not look to be here. We were really excited about watching him because we thought that, okay, there's a guy that could possibly go into the center position. Cedric Van Pran is not here as well.
Well, we shouldn't say he's not here.
Yeah.
He's not on the roster.
He's not on the rosters.
Which usually means
he's not here.
Something has happened.
So the center thing is kind of wide open. So one of the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow on our pre-show is about kind of putting these offensive linemen in different buckets.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some other offensive linemen. I want to give some love to the defense before we go.
Yeah, sure.
And we have a lot of linebackers here, and we kind of compared it to how we feel about the running backs, which we'll also talk this week. Linebackers kind of feel like there's not the guy. There's a bunch of really good guys, and it brings me to Logan Wilson, Dre Greenlaw, and Fred Warner, who are all later round, mid-round picks. And Logan Wilson obviously plays for the Bengals. He was a Senior Bowl player. Dre Greenlaw and Frank Warner were Senior Bowl players. It seems like you could find a really good linebacker in the Senior Bowl if you decide, hey, Jack Gibby's not good enough for the Tennessee Titans. If you're a coach that has common sense, you can find some linebackers. We found a lot of good linebackers that really showed out last year, showed out this year.
Ivan Pace.
Oh, man. Undrafted free agent who I thought for sure was going to be a Tennessee Titans in undrafted free agency. He was not. Guys, I want to put on your radar. John Trey Hunter. He is a coverage linebacker for Georgia State. 6'2", 229, 77-inch wingspan, 31-inch arms. Really love everything that he brings to the table. He's a converted from safety, so he's really good in coverage. He's really good in the run game as well. He's one of the guys. Tyrese Knight out of UTEP.
Yeah. You put him on my radar,
and
the measurables came through. 6 foot, 235, thick, stout dude.
Yes.
That
he's big. I think he's gonna be really fun to watch.
He looks like he could be a pro wrestler.
Yeah. I like him, and I talked about Peyton Wilson this morning on Football Another F in Stacking the Inbox.
And his Stone Cold Steve Austin knee braces.
Yeah, he's got some knee braces, man, but he is 6'4".
I know, but am I the only one that thinks his tape is awesome? It's fun to watch. I don't mean this as a slight, but with the injury concern or the injury history, and then like the way he's built, I feel like he's too lanky to play linebacker and hold up in the NFL playing the way you've got to play. Like I like him. I like him thick and juicy. You know,
we'll see. I mean, he's 6'4", 234. He's got a wing, and I'm excited to watch some Cedric Gray too. I think there's a lot of tape out there, a lot of good positive things, but this linebacking group will obviously be up against the running backs, so they're kind of in the middle of the field, so we'll both be able to watch them.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited.
I haven't watched any of his tape, but smart people who I trust about the draft have said in a linebacking class that's just kind of a hodgepodge of mediocrity, like he's a guy to watch this week.
Gotcha. Okay. Big meaty men. You're
meaty
on
men.
the offense side of the ball. who are some defenders besides Tavondre Sweat, which everybody knows, right? Everybody knows Tavondre Sweat.
Oh, man.
Who are some defenders on the defensive line in the trenches that you're excited to see?
Immediately, Gabe Hall comes to mind. I did not think he would be here. He was initially announced for the Shrine Bowl and then got the invite. I watched him. I don't know. I might still have my notes here in my my draft notebook, but he's got the length. He's 6'5", 290 pounds. Played at Baylor. Right here, I watched my notes from the Texas Tech game. Length, all caps, exclamation point is what I wrote. Yeah, he's a driver. Tad high with the pad level. Kind of unrefined in that regard. But Gabe Hall is a guy that I kind of want to see come here. And like we've talked about with a couple of other players, like come here, get the coaching, get the refinement. It's kind of, I keep bringing up Jalen Duncan. Like,
you love Jalen Duncan.
Kind of like Jalen Duncan of the defensive line kind of deal. I like Gabe Hall quite a bit. Anybody that you had in mind?
Yeah, so I talked about Keith Randolph. We both are Keith Randolph fans.
Like Keith
he had a
Randolph,
kind of a down year this year, and I kind of talked through that in stackingtheinbox.com. His Jerzon Newton did not end up showing up, at least. According to this, he's not on any of the rosters.
No.
And I was really hoping that there was going to be some friendly competition between the two. But we got to go with Miles Cole, right? We had to bring up Miles Cole.
The fucking measurements of this kid. You want to talk about freak numbers.
Yeah. 6'5", 272, 36-inch arms, and 87-inch wingspan, which are all setting records for the position in the NFL draft.
Oh, man. I got to see. Man, I'm just thinking about it right now. If Texas Tech played Houston, can we find the tape of Miles Cole versus Patrick Paul?
That could be some good stuff. That would be like, they probably just get tangled up like two inflatable 2-bar men that got intertwined.
Yeah, that'd be like Oppenheimer shit right there. Put your goggles on. They're setting a bomb off.
But that's a guy that I'm really excited to watch because he's just big. To me, it's like, how are you too big for the NFL? Because are you too slow?
Yeah.
And can you leverage your size if you are slow? So these guys have a lot to answer for. Those are two guys on the defensive line that I mentioned. I'm also interested in Tyler Davis as well.
To be such a bad football team in 2023, UConn has some ball players, man.
Yeah.
Jackson Mitchell at the Shrine Bowl right now. Christian Haynes, right guard, is playing in the Senior Bowl this week. And then Eric Watts. You look at the measurables on the defensive line. 6'5", 277, 35 and 6'8" arms, and then an 84-inch wingspan. Like there are some dudes here. Yeah. This is going to be a feast this week for people that love offensive and defensive.
ESPN is showing some of the Senior Bowl practices, so you'll be able to, and of course we'll be doing our own coverage all throughout the week,
and we'll be paying attention.
Yeah. Unlike most people at the Senior Bowl. To round it off, I just want to say thank you guys for joining us. Go ahead.
If I may, two last updates. Leatu Latu's arm measurement came in at 32.5 inch. So people are going to start dissecting his short arms. I wrote about him extensively in a scouting report on Stacking the Inbox. I think he has some deficiencies to overcome. I think he's a guy that could improve his stock in the sense that, you're not going from day 3 to day 1, but this is a guy that could go from 20s to maybe fringe top 10 with a good week here. And lastly, my wife won't stop asking me for Sam Hartman updates, but babe, I don't have any yet. The practices haven't started.
Yeah, we'll get you your Sam Hartman updates later.
I don't know why she's into Sam Hartman.
Well, he's ugly.
He's not like he's the most handsome quarterback to ever play football.
That will do it for us. We greatly appreciate you guys joining us. Stay tuned to stackingtheinbox.com for big news, but also for all your Senior Bowl information. We will be going live tomorrow from practice, more than likely. We're only like 2 feet from practice, so I don't know if we should really break down our equipment and then take it, or just do it from here and just walk over.
And we might have to crawl back.
But we're gonna figure it out. But we'll be going live. Don't know what time. What the hell else do you want to talk about?
I just came across one more note that I wanted to say. I can't wait to see Joe Milton throw the ball over the Gulf of Mexico.
There you go. He's probably gonna hit us in the stands. Make sure you're wearing your bicycle helmets to protect yourself. But Senior Bowl coverage all this week. Every morning we'll be going live. Then you'll be getting stuff at stackinginbox.com, either written up or filmed or audio from us, talking about some extra stuff that we saw from the game. Football and other F words will be at night on Wednesday, and a football show will again be probably late afternoon because Senior Bowl is actually getting out early.
Yeah. The practices are out earlier this year.
But we'll make sure to keep you guys updated on when everything's happening. Senior Bowl morning coverage will be earlier because they are starting earlier. But Lions Ford is the reason that we are down here. They are our travel sponsor. We greatly appreciate everything about Lions Ford. If you are in the market for a new car, pre-owned car, or just need a dealership you could trust with the service of your existing car, Lions Ford, Lewisburg, Tennessee, give them a call. They'll come get your car. They'll help you with whatever you need. Sinker's Beverages of East Nashville, fantastic liquor store. Get all your stuff from them. You know what? They're even on Uber Eats. So make sure that you get on Uber Eats for Sinker's Beverages because you know what?
They drive so you can drink.
There you go. You nailed it. I don't know if I'm really setting you up properly, but at least you're picking up on it.
You did that time.
Okay.
We got there.
And make sure, so Sinker's Beverages, award-winning, locally owned, locally operated. They've been around forever. East Nashville, Tennessee. And, of course, buildkg.com for all your home remodeling needs. They've been our longtime sponsor here for a football show. Greatly appreciate them. Just give them a call. Does not hurt you. Does not break the bank. If you just give them a call and let them tell you what they can do for you. Buildkg.com. Stoney Keeley at Stoney Keeley on X. Zach Lyons at FWordsPod on X, stackinginbox.com, SoBrosNetwork.com. Make sure you go down there, go to YouTube, turn on notifications, 440 Sports, because if you don't, you may miss out on some coverage. This will also be an audio format, of course, but make sure that you are tuned in because this best Senior Bowl coverage in Titans Nation is live and on the ground.
That's right.
For Stoney, I'm Zach. This has been a football show, that was. Sorry, I'm getting confused because I was going to say this has been football and other F words.
You just got effed.
But this is a football show, or that was a football show.
You just.